So I'm going to do my predictions for UFC 315 tomorrow, but I need to talk about what's going on in Alberta because one, I live in Alberta, and what's going on with the referendum and all that stuff will affect me, my channel, all that stuff. So I'm gonna go through all of it. We're gonna look at a few articles, and then I'm gonna give you my point of view. That is the point of view of a 21-year-old with a disability on age, which is our disability, doing YouTube. So whether you find my point of view interesting, credible, stick around. If not, oh well. I don't really give a shit. Um, but let's start off with this one right here. Alberta Premier promises separation referendum in 2026 if petition signatures warrant. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith says she will hold a referendum on provincial separation next year if citizens gather the required signatures on a petition. Smith, in a live stream address Monday, she said she wants a sovereign Alberta within a united Canada, but there's a growing number of Albertans who are unhappy with Confederation and are organizing petitions to push for exit. The vast majorities of these individuals are not fringe voices to be marginalized or vilified. They are loyal Albertans, she said. They're frustrated and they're frustrated and they have every reason to be. The speech comes a week after Smith's United Conservative government introduced legislation that, if passed, would sharply reduce the bar petitioners need to meet to trigger a provincial referendum. The bill introduced that day after the federal election would change citizen-initiated referendum rules to require a petition signed by 10% of the eligible voters in a previous general election, down from 20% of total registered voters. Applicants would also get 120 days rather than 90 to collect the 177,000 signatures. Smith said Alberta has no choice but to take the steps to combat a decade of hostile federal liberal policies. She says, "I've not taken I've not only taken an unfair share of Alberta's wealth, but in doing so have also undermined the oil and gas industry that drives its economy." Oil and gas is the biggest thing we have here. Like, I live in a small town. I basically any guy who had no vision, no urge to go to school, that's where they went, and they make a shit ton of money from it too. And that's the main way a lot of people get enough money to buy a house. But I have friends that are out there right now, whether they're trucking, whether they're actually working in the sand, who can barely afford like to live in an apartment, which is absurd. Okay, that that's okay. Most of them can afford it. Most of them are making terrible financial choices, like most people do. But it's still the quality of life you have before in the rigs is nowhere near what it is today. Um, as Prime Minister, Mark Carney prepares to meet U.S. President Donald Trump in person in Washington on Tuesday, which he did, and now people are pissed off at Mark Carney. Turns out to be friends with Donald Trump, and had a good meeting with Trump, even though like he's the one that had a history with Trump, not Pierre, but Pierre was the pro Orange Man candidate to discuss the tariff trade war and other issues. Smith said liberal rule has turned Canada into an international laughingstock. We have the most abundant and accessible natural resources of any country on earth, and yet we landlock them. Sell what we produce to a single customer to the south of us while enabling polluting dictatorships to eat at once, she said. She said a rise in popular support for infrastructure projects across Canada, like pipelines, gave her hope, and she will continue working on negotiating a fair deal with the Prime Minister in good faith. Meanwhile, her government is to appoint a negotiation team to try and bring an end to federal policies that have long irritated the province and to demand guaranteed access to tidewater for Alberta resources, exports, and oil and gas. So, um, the rest of it though basically talks about First Nations, First Nation lands, and how they will be affected and represented in the referendum, which is another thing we'll have to see it going forward. But she also wants to negotiate with the Liberal government, and I have family East, and so I know how liberal the East is. Again, a lot of them watch the mainstream news networks, and no matter where you go on the mainstream news networks, you are not getting news. You are getting a company's point of view. They're shoving it down your throat, whether it's Fox, whether it's MSNBC, or whether it's uh, any fucking one of them. But we'll read this. Smith wants to negotiate Alberta Accord, guaranteeing pipelines and more federal cash. Alberta Premier Danielle Smith threw down the gauntlet to newly elected Prime Minister Mark Carney in a live stream address Monday, calling on him to negotiate a new deal between Ottawa and Alberta, guaranteeing more pipelines and changes to equalization. We hope this will result in a binding argument that Albertans can have the confidence in, why can I scroll, in its absolute accord, said Smith, seated in front of a backdrop of an Albertan and Canadian flag. Um, why can I not? Uh, really? I can't scroll. Come on. I can scroll on this one. There we go. Smith said she would soon appoint a special team to represent Alberta in these negotiations. She set down multiple demands the province intends to make, including guaranteed access to tidewaters for its energy exports on all three coasts, the elimination of federal net zero policies, and the same per capita federal transfers and equalization payments as Ontario, Quebec, and British Columbia receive, which is bullshit, dude. I get paying in as a country. We need federal money, but the amount of money that Alberta sends to go every other province is fucking ridiculous, and we do get nothing in return. We get absolutely nothing in return, apart, from being shit on in the media. Everybody is a fringe right in Alberta. I'll get to all that in a sec. We have no issue with Alberta continuing to subsidize smaller provinces, but there's no excuse for such large and powerful economies to subsidize one another, which is exactly the point. Ontario, Quebec, and Ontario and Quebec are large economies. They're two of the biggest economies in Canada under Alberta. Well, I mean, they might even be over Alberta. Well, they should be, with how bad the energy sector is doing in Canada. That was never the intent of equalization, and it needs to end. Smith said it was imperative for Carney to act quickly to eliminate doubts a growing number of Albertans feel about the province's future in Canada. The Premier held a special meeting in a caucus Friday to discuss how the government should respond to the return of another Liberal government to power. with very little representation in Alberta. One member of Smith's caucus, Jason Stevens, told reporters at the province legislature shortly before the premier's address he wanted to see a referendum on Alberta separation. Smith didn't go that far, but, did touch on separation in her Monday address, calling it the elephant in the room. She believes Alberta has a future in Canada, but understands the frustrations of those fed up with the status quo. The vast majority of separatists are not French voices, they are loyal Albertans, said Smith. They are our friends and neighbors who've just had enough of having their livelihoods and prosperity attacked by a liberal government. Smith said they were they, they were a successful citizen-led push for a referendum question on separation, with which hit the requisite threshold of signatures to include the question on the 2026 provincial ballot. Um, Last week, she announced she was dramatically willing to borrow for citizens to initiate referendums, which I know a lot of people are freaked out about it. I like it. Referendums don't just mean separations, they can mean a multitude of things, and that gives us more power as citizens in the province. Um, uh, we got a political science there. Political scientist. Such a stupid fucking title. Usually, premiers address air during the evening to capture a prime television audience. However, in this case, it was being broadcast in the middle of the afternoon to um, reach more audiences. And the only other important thing that you have to see here is that um, Carney, the Liberals only won 2 seats in Alberta. Every other seat went blue. Blue is conservative down here. Um, yeah, and then basically she goes on to say, um, Alberta doesn't want to be pushed on anymore. But I want to pull this up. Okay, this is um the House of Commons seat allocation, seat allocations from 2022 to 2032. So, yeah, British Columbia with 5.2 million people. They have 43 seats. You have Alberta with 4.4 million people, 37 seats. Almost 1.2 in Saskatchewan, 10. Manitoba, almost 1.4, 12. Ontario, 14 million, 122. Now I get that they have, what would that be? Over almost 4 times the population of Alberta. But again, you add this up: 80 seats, 90 seats, so 102 seats. 4 provinces don't even make up for one province's votes. Like I know that down there you have California, but it's the east decides the election. Quebec 8.6, 71 votes. New Brunswick almost 800k, 7 votes. Nova Scotia 9, PEI 2. Newfoundland is 5. But it's stupid because Ontario decides the entire election, and like the election is called before, the election is called before Alberta polling locations are closed. Now I just want to give you my honest opinion on this thing. So I'm in Alberta. I'm on age, just filled in, right? I get The money I get, I'm able to pay my rent. I'm able to get groceries. But again, I can only go out for groceries once or twice a month. When I factor in trying to put away money, other expenses, and all that stuff, it's been brutal. I get most people my age aren't able to, move out, and I know that's the thing in Alberta or America too. But it's been annoying, man. Like people don't realize that nearly everything revolves around the oil industry. Majority of the products you use are made from oil, products and bioproducts. And to get anywhere, even though you have electric vehicles, all the rubber majority of the parts, in order to melt them down, typically oil and gas is used. Like it's annoying, man. It's annoying. Like I used to be on both sides. Right? I used to be heavy on the left, heavy on the right. The older I get, which I know what happens. But I didn't vote because, like, once again, it does not matter. Like my city has been conservative in over 4 elections in 50 years. Um, but I don't know, man. Part of me is like, as long as long as we get more control over our province, mainly as me doing YouTube, the censorship, the online um the online acts or whatever they're called, those really affect this YouTube channel, and it really says that like having a YouTube channel in Canada is difficult because you're battling the mainstream Canadian news networks because they put in a bill that it what's the word they use, it endorse, no, not endorse, it basically pushes Canadian content. And you would initially look at that and like, okay, Canadian YouTubers, right? Like maybe like I think Weasel is Canadian, or like I can't think of any off the top of my head. I don't know, Venom's Gaming. Shout out to him, he's Canadian. But like back to the elections, there's no point in voting really. And I hate it because it turns my province into a one party province, which I know it happens everywhere. But I feel like if we did separate, we would have more change in the government. I do like the referendum. I'm not just talking about the separation. No. I don't even know if I would sign it. I don't even know if somebody came up to me with the position, whether I put pen to paper. I still haven't made up my mind on it. Like, you have to look at security, you have to look at the financial impact, all that stuff. But like, I I think the older you get, the idea of that, oh, a unified country and all that, like, your country would sell you out, like your government would sell you out without any hesitation, and they do, no matter who they are. But we'll see, man. I just like in my situation, I'm gonna continue to do MMA. Mainly, I do want to branch out more, but it's better than, oh my, indigestion. Come on. It's better to stay in the niche. But yeah, we'll see, man. We'll see. Like I've always had the idea in my mind, but like there are a lot of people now that I talk to who are who used to be heavily against it, And now they're like, you know what? Kind of makes sense. So we'll see, man. We'll have to keep an eye on the votes. I'll keep you updated on how it affects the channel. Personally, I don't really give a shit. I'm sort of burst anybody's bubble. Whether we are in Canada or whether we're American, whether we're our own sovereign country, it doesn't fucking matter. The only bit of government that ultimately matters is your local government because you're never really going to be able to do anything about the federal government. The federal government is bought and paid for. But I'm getting into conspiracies, I guess. I wanted to just rant about this, bro. Oh yeah, other thing too. I want to quickly say this to everybody who voted for Mark Carney because he was anti-Trump and he was gonna fight Trump, and then you get pissy when he goes and meets with Trump and says he had a really good meeting with him. He's known Trump for years. They've been at least acquaintances over 30 years. And Pierre was harder on Trump. Pierre was way harder on Trump. Was I kind of think in a crazy way that kind of lost him the election, even with all the tariff shit now. But I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below. I know a majority of you who are subscribed, you live in Canada, but if you don't, let me know in the comments down below. What do you think about Alberta separation? Um, Being this serious now, do you think we'll have a vote on it next year? And if so, what do you want to see happen? Let me know in the comments down below. Thanks for watching. Later.